Hello and welcome to Code Tutorials. In this video, we're going to take a look at how you can display pricing information for variable items. We will be doing this using the pricing calculator widget from the Qi Addons for Elementor Premium plugin. With it, we can make and showcase pricing plans like this. You have variable items on one side and your visitors will be able to adjust them using the toggle switches to create a payment plan or product package that will fit their needs precisely. And as they make adjustments, they will be able to see how the additions and subtractions affect the final price. Then, if they want, they can make further adjustments and proceed to purchase whatever they decided on. So, besides being adjustable in terms of items included in the price calculation, this widget also includes numerous stylization options. You can change the look of the toggle switches, or the purchase buttons, or the text content of the calculator element, whatever you like. Additionally, you can change backgrounds, whether for the element or the section that contains it. In fact, this is a very versatile widget, so it's very easy to combine with section titles, images, any other widget, whether they are in the Qi Addons collection or not. So we have this great interactive element that calculates prices on the spot and we want to add it to our page. The question becomes, how do we set it up? Well, let's take a look. Head over to the back end. This is the page I'll be working on. You can see I already prepared a section where I'll be putting my price calculators. I have a section background image, some title text, and 4 columns for the 4 price calculators I'll be adding. Now all I need to do is search for pricing calculator in the Elementor sidebar. There it is. Now drag it over to the page. And this is what the widget looks like by default. It's transparent. There's some placeholder text with minimal styling. The line items are on the left and the price as well as the purchase button are on the right. But even as I go over this, the widget is a bit hard to see because of the background image. I'll be fixing that shortly by setting a background color. Before I do that though, I just want to change the widget layout. The one we have right now is called Side, and it's not the greatest match to the narrow column I set up to fit my pricing calculator element. So first, I'm going to change the layout from Side to Simple. And then I'm going to switch over to the Style tab where I can set a background color for my element. I'll be using white for this. There we go. Now my pricing calculator is a lot easier to see. And while I'm here, I'll use the option below to set a border color for my element. I know which one I want, so I'll simply type in the hex code for it. And then I'm going to briefly increase the border width to make it easier to see the new color. This is it. My new border color is this soft gray. However, since 7 pixels is a bit too much for me in terms of border width, I'll replace this with 1 pixel. Okay, now that I've done that, we can go back to the Content tab and start exploring the options from the top. So, this is my element. The layout I'm using is simple, which puts the price at the top, the items in the middle, and the button and its accompanying description at the bottom. When we start changing the content, the first option is for replacing the description placeholder text. That's this text here on the page. I'll speed up for this next bit while I type in my new content. Okay. After that, we have the currency field where we can replace the currency symbol shown next to the price. This is actually a plain text field, so anything you type in will show up on the page. As I plan on sticking with the dollars, I won't be making any changes here. And the same goes for the field below that, the one for the period. It's another plain text field, so you can replace the existing text with anything you like. Then we have the button text field. You can see that text here. I'm just going to make a slight modification to it by erasing the word now. And naturally, when you have a button, you're going to have a URL for that button. That's set in this field here. I'll put in a hashtag as a placeholder since I'm only making this for the tutorial. And this brings us to the child element section. It has 3 items and they correspond to the 3 line items that are in play for making the calculation. I don't require that many, so I'll erase one. However, if you want to add rather than remove items, simply click here to add a new one. That's it. Okay. Now, these items have their own options. You can see them when you open one. These options include the price, where you can input the numerical value for that item, and that value will then be used for the calculation. And we have the title, where we can set a name for the item. I'll change the placeholder text here. Give me a sec. Okay. Then we have this toggle switch called Item Active. It lets us set whether the item will be active or already included in the calculation. Let me show you. I'll switch this to yes, and then we can see it's turned on now in the item itself. So this option lets you set which items, if any, will be included by default in the price calculation. Of course, visitors will still be able to deactivate them within the element on the page before purchasing. Okay, now let me customize the second item. In here, I'll change the value for price so you can see. It will be 22 now. And if we look at the page, we can see that the calculation has changed since both items are marked as active. Next, I'll change the title as well. There we go. And I'll keep this item active. And that's it, the items are done. Now we can move on to the next section in the options, and that one is for customizing the purchase button. And actually, I don't want to spend much time on this as we have a separate video explaining all the button options in detail. But just so you're aware, this is where you can change your button layout, its type, add an underline to its text, or adjust its size. Since my plan design allows me to keep the settings here as they already are by default, I'll simply carry on. So the next section we have is for the button icon. If you like, this is where you can upload an icon that would stand next to the button text. You can use something from the icon library, it's quite extensive. Or you can upload a custom SVG. That's what I'll do. This is the icon I'll use. Insert media. There we go. Once you pick an icon, you can decide whether it will be on the right or the left side of the button text. I'll keep mine on the right. Okay. And that's mostly it for the Content tab options. The last two sections are something you get with all of our widgets. One is the Developer Tools. When we open it, there is just one option in here, and when we switch its setting to yes, it displays the widget in the form of a WordPress shortcode, which can easily be copied for use elsewhere on our site. Okay, and after that, we have the Help section. It contains some helpful links and resources should you need them. Alright, and that really is it for the Content tab. So we can move on to the Style tab now. The first section of the options here will help us style some general things about the pricing calculator. And you might remember some of these options from the very start of the video where I changed the widget background color and set a border color and width for it. That leaves us with only one option we didn't cover earlier, the padding. With it, we can adjust the space around our content. When I start to change, it first resets and then the space all around the content grows. You can add the same padding to each side, or you can delink the field so you can set different values for each one. I'll first set 52 pixels here. Okay, and then I will delink the fields. Then I'll just adjust the top padding a bit. And there we go. That's sorted, and I have the values I want for the other three sides already there. After this, we have the next section, Switcher Style. So this section will let us style these toggle switches here. And the options in here fall into two groups. Normal for the regular inactive switch display and active for the activated switch display. We'll start with the options under normal. There's button color. You can set any shade you like and it will show here within the toggle switch. I want to use plain white here, so I'll type in the hex code for it. Okay. Then we have the background color. As its name suggests, it's used for changing the switch background. I'll set another hex code for this and make the background nearly black. Perfect. And after that, we have the border color option. This border will frame the toggle switches as a whole. Let me increase the width so we can see it better. Okay, there. Now we can see how the border looks with the random color I set. As I don't plan on using it, I'll reset these options. Alright, there we go. And let's see what settings we have under active. In large part, they mirror what we had under normal. So there's active button color, where we can set the color of the toggle within the switch when it is in its on position. And actually I set both my switches to be active, so the color changed for both. But if I had set one to be inactive, then we would still see its color as white. Alongside that, we have the active background color option. It lets us set a different background color for the switches when they are activated. I do want to use this to differentiate between the active and normal settings, so I'll type in a hex code for a caramel-like color. Perfect. And after that, we have the active border color. You can set any color you like. There is a default 1 pixel wide border so we can see the color. You can make it wider using the border width option, like so. By the way, whichever border width you set, the value will apply to both the normal and active displays. Okay, let me reset this now. There we go. That's it for the switcher style options. And with the changes I made here, if I move one of the toggles, there, we can see how they differ. That's because I set different background colors for the normal and active displays. Alright, that's that for the switchers. Moving on, we have the item title style section. The first option in here is for setting the title tag. That works on these item titles here. I'll change the setting to the B tag. Alright. And we have the title color option if we want to change the color of the item title text. And for additional changes, we have the title typography options. They contain things like the font family option, which you can use to change the font used for the item titles. Then there's the font size. Simply input whatever value you want. We also have the weight option with a selection of settings if you'd like to change the font weight. Then there's the transform option if you want to make your titles, for example, uppercase. After that, we have the style option, where you can switch from the default, which is normal, to, say, italic, and the decoration, which can be used to add a line over, under, or through the titles. Finally, there are the line height, letter spacing, and word spacing options, if you'd like to make any adjustments to the spaces there. And that's everything you get in the typography options. Incidentally, this wraps up the item title style section as well. Okay, in the section under that, we have the price style options. So these help us style the look of the total that's calculated. The first option is for changing the price color. And when I set something new, there, you can see the different color. I'm going to set an almost black shade for this. Give me a sec to type in the hex code. Okay. Next we have the price typography. The selection of options is the same one we saw earlier, so I won't go over them again. Instead, I'll simply set what I need. And that is font size 70 pixels and font weight 500. That's all. So moving on, we have the currency color option. This lets us change the color of the currency symbol next to the price total. I'm going to set the same color I used for the number. There. And after that, we have the currency typography. Again, I'll only set what I need, which is the weight 500. And we can carry on. Alright, our next option is period color. It lets us set the color of this bit of text here. I'll set the same hex code for almost black I've been using so far. There we go. And after we have the period typography. The options are all the same, as you can see. But there's nothing I need to change here, so let's see what's next. That would be the currency margin. We can use it to add more space around the currency symbol, as you can see here. However, I'm happy with the default look, so I'll simply erase this. Then we have the period margin. For this, we can see only the fields for the bottom and the left sides are active, whereas the top and right are not available for this. Given that the option affects this text here, it makes sense that the space we add would go to separate the period from the price on the left or to lift it away from the items at the bottom. When I start to increase, you can see how the period shifts diagonally. That's because I've added the same amount of space at the bottom and on the right. If you want to avoid this, you can click here to delink the fields and then enter differing values in each. So for the bottom, I'll put 5 pixels. And for the left, I'll put 8 pixels. Okay, there it is, looking good. And after this, we have the decoration style options. They include the option that lets us change the color of the description text. You can see how it looks when we set something different. Alright, I'll clear it. And below this, we have the description typography. It consists of all the standard typography options, if there's anything you'd like to change. However, I'm good with the default settings. So, let's take a peek at the button style options. They let us adjust the look of the purchase button. And the first thing in here is another set of typography options. I don't plan on changing anything, but if you do, by now you know all the options in here. Underneath the typography, we have these normal and hover switches. Under normal, we get options that allow us to style the look of the button when it's displayed regularly. And under hover, we get options for styling the button when it's hovered over. There's already a difference in looks by default. So, looking at the normal options from the top, we have the text color. It allows us to change the button text color. I'll set plain white for this. Okay. And then there's the background color option. That's actually for the button itself, as you can see. I'll set the same caramel shade I have in the switches above. There, perfect. And under these, we have the options for enabling and styling a border. To enable it, simply pick a color, any will do, and then go to increase the width. Then your new border will appear. I don't plan on using a border, so I'll replace the value here with 0 and clear the color as well. Then we have this option, the border radius. Despite its name, it will affect the button even if you don't set a border. It helps us curve the button corners. In fact, we can see that there is a slight radius already here by default, as the corners are softened a bit. You can increase that and get even rounder edges using this option. Alternatively, you can set 0 here and it will remove the default radius to get you a button with sharp corners. This is what I'll be keeping for my calculator design. Next, we have the padding option. With it, we can adjust the space around the button text and in doing so affect the button size. You can increase all sides evenly, or you can click here to delink the fields and then set each side separately. I'll do that and put 14 pixels at the top, 40 on the right, 13 at the bottom, and 40 on the left. There, perfect. Now let's take a look at the options we get when we switch over to the hover settings. In general, these are reflections of what we had under normal too. So there's the text color on hover, and it can look something like this. I want to use the same color for both normal and hover displays, so I'll just clear this. Then we have the background hover color, and that gets us something like this. And if you set different background colors, then you can use this option, the reveal background, to add an animated transition effect. The default setting is no effect, but we can replace it with horizontal, and then the hover color will be drawn over the button horizontally, like so. Or we can pick vertical, and then the color will appear from the bottom. Alright, I'll go back to using none, and I'll reset the background color as well. There. And the last option in here is for setting the border hover color. If you set the color here, then if we look at the button, nothing happens. That's because, if you recall, we set 0 as the border width. If I increase that now, the button changes a bit. That's because the border width option affects the button both when it's displayed normally and when it's hovered over. Given that my normal display doesn't have a border color, we can't see a border until I hover. So that's something to keep in mind if you want to use a border. Alright, let me clear this. There. This wraps up the current section. So let's move on to the button icon styles. The options here can help us style any icon we've added to our button. That includes changing its size. I'll set mine to 6 pixels. Then we have the switches for normal and hover options. Within normal, we have the icon color option, so I can use it to change the color of the icon I added to my button. It has the standard color picker. I'll set the color to white so it matches the button text. Then under hover, we have the icon hover color option. That's if we want to make the icon a different color on hover. I'll be keeping mine white for both. But we also have the move icon option here. It lets us pick the animation effect that our icon will display when someone hovers over the button. The default setting is horizontal short, which looks like this, but we can replace it with horizontal, which looks like this, or vertical, which looks like this, or diagonal, which looks like this. Finally, we can set none, which will disable the animation entirely, so there'll be no change when we hover. For my design, I'll go back to using the horizontal short animation. There we go, a nice little detail to have. After that, we have the icon margin option. It lets us create more space around the icon. You can see how the new values here created this buffer of space all around the icon. If you want to set different values for different sides of the icon, let me clear this. You can click here to delink the fields and then input the values you want. I'll set 1 pixel at the top and 10 pixels on the left, and that's it. Now, over in the next section, there are no options. This is because I'm not using the button with inner border and I can't style something I don't have. And the same goes for the section underneath, the button underline style. I didn't enable a button text underline, therefore I can't style it. However, the final section, the spacing style, is something that I can use. The options here are dedicated to different margin adjustments. For starters, there's the item title margin left. When I start to increase, you can see how the space between the item titles and the switches grows. I'll make a teensy adjustment here and put 13 pixels as the value. Then we have the button margin top. With this, we can add more space above the button, here, so we can separate it from the text if we want to. I'll set 28 pixels for this. Okay, after that, there's the price margin bottom, which lets us add more space under the calculated price. Here, I'll put 24 pixels for this. Then we have the space between items. This option lets us space out the different items we added to our calculator. Since I only have 2 items, it's this gap here. I'm going to put 10 pixels for this. And finally, we have the items holder margin bottom. With it, we can add more space under the items as a group. So this space here. I want to divide them a bit more from the description, so I'll set 91 pixels here. Alright, my pricing calculator element is done. And we covered all the options it has. However, the page section I prepared still has 3 empty columns. Now, rather than make 3 whole new elements from scratch, I'll simply duplicate the one I have ready. But before I do that, I'll open the navigator to help me place all the elements where they need to go. So, right-click and select the navigator. Then right-click again on the element and then go to duplicate. Now you can drag the new copy of your element and drop it wherever you want it to be, or, and this is going to be useful when your pages have more sections and more elements, you can use the navigator to drag and drop the right elements in the right places. So I'll just grab my second pricing calculator and drop it in the second column. Perfect. Now all I need to do, since most of my style settings are already taken care of, is customize the content. Of course, you can also make adjustments to the style as well, if you want to create variations in the look within the group. In fact, let me skip ahead to show you what that might look like. Here we are. I've added my third pricing calculator and I want to make it different compared to the other 2. Now, since we covered all the options, I won't explain them again. I'll simply run through them, making the changes I need as I go along. So, I'll change the price for my first item. There we go. And I'll do the same for the second item. Okay, but I want to introduce another difference here. And I'll do that by marking this item as inactive. There. And now the switch on the page is in the off position. But that's not the end of the changes I want to make. So let's head over to the Style tab. I'm going to switch the background color of this particular price calculator. There. Then I'll adjust the border color to match. Perfect. Moving on to Switcher Style, I need to make changes to improve the visibility and contrast. So I'll set a paler shade for my inactive button. Okay, then I need to do something similar for the text. So I need the item title style, where I'll change the item titles to white. And I'll do the same for all the colors in price style. So price color, white, currency color, white, and period color, white. Looking good. But if you want to go further with differentiating looks, you can make other changes too. I'll make some now to the typography. I'll switch the font family for the price. There, and I'll set the weight to 300. Suddenly it looks a lot different. So these are all relatively minor subtle changes, but they can amount to a pretty big difference in the end. Let's see what else I can change. Oh, I should match the currency typography to the price typography. Alright. There we go. Okay, that's most of my text done. All that's left is the description. So in description style, I'll change the color to white. Perfect. So that's one idea of how you can make a standout element even in a group of its peers. Now, for my fourth column, I'll make a copy of the second price calculator. I want the dark background one to be the only exception to the group look, and then I'll put the new element in the fourth column. There we go. Okay, since everything is positioned how I wanted it, I'll close down the navigator, and then skip ahead while I customize the final element. Alright, here we are. All my pricing calculator elements are done, my section is complete. So I can hit update to save my work. And there we are, a page section with several instances of the pricing calculator widget. I chose to make this example because it allowed me to go through all the options to show you how to make copies of a widget you prepare and how to style the same thing differently. However, if you'd like to see other possible uses for this widget, you can hop back to the page we started from. It contains different examples of the pricing calculator widget and how it can be used on the page, styled, or customized. Of course, this is far from a definitive list, but it's a good starting point if you're looking for ideas or design solutions you can copy. The important thing is that you now have a much better idea of how this widget works and what you can do with it. So, we hope you found this tutorial on the pricing calculator widget from the Qi Addons for Elementor Premium plugin to be helpful. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please drop us a line in the comments below. Also, make sure to subscribe to our channel and be the first to learn about any new tutorials and theme guides. Thank you for watching.